welcome to T-Minus Retirement, a podcast where we help launch your retirement into orbit. I'm Jay Cole.
And I'm Dustin Watts.
And in today's video, we're going to be talking about one of the most important questions that we get with our clients and just with people that we talk to. And that's essentially, how much should you be saving in your 401k each year? I think that's a very important topic because it's not really a one-size-fit-all approach. Might seem like that, but as we know in life, everything's so nuanced and varied, and just depends on what your circumstances are, your age, and what other factors are going on within your life.
Yeah, I always have clients come to me, Jay, and they say, I look at their 401k, they say, well, how much should I be contributing? It's like, well, it's kind of a loaded question. I always like to start kind of at this first point is you need to understand your income and your expenses first and foremost, because that will dictate really how much you can save. Before we get into, percentages and things, it's like, okay, how much are you making? What is your, after your fixed expenses are met, how much do you have available to save? You can kind of back into that number, sometimes. But that's the first thing to know is, what is your income? What is your expenses? And what do you have the ability to save? Because of course we don't want someone contributing so much into their 401k that they're having to, put daily living expenses on a credit card or forego, paying on certain types of debt just so that they can contribute to their 401k. So I think that's really important place to start.
Yeah, exactly. It might seem like the best advice to just max out the 401k with your paychecks, but you have to live as well. And like you said, you don't want to just dead up everything because you're trying to save for retirement.
Yeah.
But another factor too is, does your employer offer a 401k match?
Right.
And if they do, generally, we've talked about this in previous videos, but generally you want to contribute up to the maximum amount that they'll match as well. Because
at a minimum, right?
Yeah, at a minimum, yeah, because that's free money on the table. So if it's you can put up to 5% and then they'll match 5%, you want to do the minimum of that just to get that extra free money.
Well, and I love explaining that to clients because I'll explain it like, hey, if they're going to match 3%, 4%, whatever it is, if you're contributing that and they're matching it, that's 100% return on that money. I mean, you're not going to get any better return than that typically inside of 401k. So you need to at least start there when you do start contributing, at least up to the match at a minimum.
Yeah, it's funny. I've dealt with some tax clients where this is more rare, but their employer did 100% match of the whole, whatever you do. So if you maxed out your 401k, they would 100% match that as well.
Wow. That would compound pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That's a good employer to work for. That is very rare.
It is very, very rare. I've only seen it maybe 3 times and they've been different employers. But yeah, 100% of the match. That's crazy.
That's nice. All right. So you've taken a look at your income and your expenses. You're at least, doing the match, if not potentially more. Kind of the next step when evaluating your 401k, is to really just look at your age and kind of what your horizon is up to retirement and adjust your investment allocation to, be appropriate for you. I mean, if you're starting your first job out of college and you're 21, 22 years old, typically you want that to be a pretty aggressive equity allocation, to where now your contributions are going in, your employer match is going in, and it's going into stock that's going to compound at a pretty high rate relative, to maybe some other assets. But that's all up to your discretion inside of a 401k. Certainly on the flip side of that, if you're closer to retirement, you might want to consider backing down that aggressive allocation. And again, there's not a perfect one size fits all answer to that. You kind of need to look at yourself and what you're comfortable with. But, when we're talking in kind of broad terms, you need to kind of think in those ways as how you want to set your 401k up for the amount of time you're going to be investing up to retirement.
Yeah, and that goes into as well, what are your retirement goals specifically?
Right.
Do you want to retire at 55? Do you want to retire at 75? Or essentially never retire. We know some people like that.
Yep.
And then also, what do you plan your retirement living expenses to be, or do you have these big travel goals, or even more importantly, when do you want to start Social Security or any pensions? Because if you have those supplemental incomes, then you might not need to have that much built up into the 401k because you're living off of these other incomes involved. So really does depend on what are your specific retirement goals. And like for example, many clients they they saved they were able to pay off everything, and so when they retired, they can live comfortably just on Social Security. Like, I mean, really comfortably. House is paid off, cars are paid off, and so for them having the 401k money that's turned into an IRA, they don't necessarily need to have 1.5 million or 2 million in that, because they just use that as more of a supplemental thing for just trips or repairs for the home or whatever the case is.
And the RMDs are being forced upon them.
Yeah, exactly. That's usually when they pull money out, when it's RMD.
Well, without going down rabbit holes, remember you can do charitable contributions with that.
Yep.
So that's nice. All right. So, and maybe this next topic should have been maybe a little earlier in this list, but you need to also balance your 401k contributions with your other financial goals. I think that's important because, of course, you want to be saving for retirement. You don't want to rely solely on Social Security, but you also need to balance that with maybe more immediate needs that you might have. Maybe, again, you're saving for a house. You're paying off debt, whatever it may be. There's lots of other things that go on in people's lives that you need to plan for, and you don't want to be neglecting those just to put into your 401k. So striking some type of balance, maybe that needs to kind of be step 2, actually, right after assessing your income and your expenses, but making sure that it's what you are contributing is truly for retirement. You're not going to need that for a long period of time. We really don't want to have to go and touch your 401k and or have to take a loan or anything like that, if at all possible. You should really be segmenting, those buckets, so to speak, in your mind of like, hey, this is retirement money. I'm not going to touch it for 30 years down the road. I have my short-term money. I have my money that I'm saving for a house in the next couple of years, whatever it may be. I think that's important, just to really define what those other goals are, because you need to get all that straight before you start committing more than you're willing to the 401k.
Yeah, and the one thing too that maybe not a lot of people think about in the short term is all the pre-tax 401k money that's taxable whenever you pull it out, whether in chunks or lump sum or whatever the case is. And so you need to really consider, when you're in retirement, are you anticipating on being in either a higher or a lower tax bracket?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're anticipating in being in a higher tax bracket than what you currently are now, that could be because you have pensions plus whatever you've saved in the 401k, and you have RMDs plus maybe investments. It might not make sense just to do everything pushed into the pre-tax portion, because essentially you're paying more tax when you pull that money out versus if you were just to do a Roth 401k, pay the tax at your current rate, and then let that grow tax-free. So, and that's kind of hard to really anticipate, because you might not really know until you're much more closer to retirement what your situation will look like. But it really just depends. I know the Roth 401ks, Roth IRAs, those are really popular now with younger people like ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we get the benefit of just growing this asset tax free for much longer periods of time. So if
well,
we
yeah.
can
I was just going to say, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, yeah, if you can retire with a $2.5 million Roth IRA, that's all tax free.
Yeah, that doesn't get any better than that. Beneficiaries don't have to pay tax on it.
Yeah.
No minimum distributions, things like that. And it's nice because Roth 401ks are becoming a lot more common. I don't know, a decade ago, you didn't see that many Roth 401ks.
No.
Now they're really offered a lot. We didn't get too much into like the limits and things. You can do 24/5 if you're under 50 on a 401k. If you're over 50, you get the catch-up contribution. So you can do, what is it, an extra 8,000?
Yeah, and then if you're 60 to 63, you get the super catch up. So
I know they've made it a little bit more complicated. I need a chart to look at, but you got the super catch up, but then new for 2026 is that catch up contribution has to go to Roth 401k.
Oh yeah.
So that's something new. And I've had clients, they're kind of bummed. And typically, they are in higher tax brackets and they want to defer more tax, but I kind of just remind them like, hey, you deferred 24/5. I know you're not going to be able to defer that little bit extra, but you're also getting that benefit of, now that money's in a Roth, you'll never pay tax on it ever again and all the growth. So it's a little bit of the best of both worlds. So it's not the worst thing ever, but they had to pay for the tax cuts somehow.
Yeah. And that's why too, it's kind of good to build up multiple buckets of different types of retirement money. I mean, everyone talks about that, but it's honestly true. It's good to have your pre-tax portion because you can save on taxes now as you're contributing to it. It's good to have the Roth because that's just a nice after-tax thing where if you need funds, you don't have to necessarily worry about, what tax bracket am I going to be in if I pull it out. And then you've got just after-tax brokerage money, which that's nice too for people that, let's say they have a couple $100,000 in there and they just live off of that for a couple years and do Roth conversions. Like it's a lot of different strategies.
You bring up a good point because I know you have it too, Jay. It's like we have clients that do max out their 401ks and they say, well, how do I save more? Well, potentially you can do IRA or maybe Roth IRA contributions depending on what your income limit is. But remember, there's a brokerage account you can always set up that there's no rules. It's not tax advantage, but you can do really whatever you want. No one's prohibiting you from saving. So there's a lot of options there. You can do HSAs potentially. So there's other ways for you to, save over and above if you're just a saver. And I don't know, we have so many clients who are everyday millionaires just from saving in their 401k, starting early, being consistent. That's what it takes, to become a millionaire, in my opinion, rather than just kind of hitting it rich. Maybe you're a SpaceX employee, I don't know, and you turn into an overnight millionaire, but there's not many of them. So for the rest of us, just be diligent, be consistent, and almost anybody can save millions of dollars and have that compounding for their whole life.
Yeah. I think bottom line, just with all of this, it's good to be enrolled into some type of 401k plan. I would say at minimum, probably take advantage of whatever your employer matches up to 100% of that. That's kind of a good place to start.
Yeah.
And then I would just say analyze it each year. If you get pay raises and your monthly budget is still okay, then maybe defer that extra amount that you're getting with the pay raise into the 401k.
Well, I forgot too. One thing I always tell people is if your plan allows for it, a lot of them have that auto increase contribution.
Oh yeah.
So every year, without you even thinking about it, it will go up whatever percentage you define. So it's really great because it's like, hey, you've gotten used to living on X, and then you'll get a little, hopefully you get a little pay bump. You've been working hard to get the couple percent there pay bump, and then you get a little bit more automatic increase in your 401k, and you don't really miss it. That's what I find. I mean, they're not like, oh, it went from 5% to 6% one year, and now they can't make it. You could always change it back, but it's just a good way to force an increase and get up to that 10 to 15% of your take-home pay, is probably ideal. If you can work up to that, and that helps you, then I think that's a good solution.
I think so too.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the time today, Jay. If anybody has questions on their 401k, feel free to reach out to us. But we hope you enjoyed the episode today. We look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care.
Bye.